Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of What the Trans.
What
the Trans. Oh god, like we are not forming a barbershop quartet with an attitude like that, are we?
Certainly not with a triplet either.
No, certainly. No, there needs to be at least one more of us. So how are you two?
Yeah, I've been doing all right. I mean, I've sort of had I've sort of had 2 days off work today, just chilling out, but that was mainly in recovery mode because I was at Exeter Pride last weekend.
Yes,
Ooh.
indeed. So tell us about Exeter Pride.
Yeah, so Exeter Pride is a pride. It's like one of those town prides you have, a little bit of a party, bit of a protest at the same time. It's sort of a weird grey area. But at the end of a pride, we were offered to do a little panel discussion on keeping informed in something or other mad post-truth world thingy, how to know what to do thing. And I was joined with two other fantastic people. One of them was Zoe. Forgot their last name, but they were like a really cool councillor who quit Labour over the puberty blocker ban. So that was awesome. And then there was like another person from the newly formed Trans Pride Exeter. Zoe Hughes, Ava Brown, and it was also with Ava Brownjohn. So they were fantastic to do, and I've never done a panel discussion before or a talk in front of any public speaking. So that was crazy.
Yeah, it's quite a thing to do, isn't it, when you do a public speak? So when you I've been on panel discussions before. Did you find it okay? Were you all right with it?
Yeah, I mean, it was nerve-wracking just before the thing happened, but once I got on stage and started talking, it was surprisingly easy.
Yeah.
Before, it's like trying to do something in front of an audience. It's a bit of a strange experience to have, but once you're there, I mean, I'd love to do it, quite frankly, I'd so do it again, because I was thinking, to see how it goes, and yeah.
Yeah. Hint, hint, regional prides. But so we actually got the offer for all three of us to go down and be part of this panel discussion.
Originally it was going to be all three of us.
It was going to be all three of us, but then I ended up having to go to a gay wedding sten party / hag party, take your pick, where we went and did archery and knife throwing and crossbows in the forest outside of Manchester, and then we went for afternoon tea in a really gay little place that does afternoon tea. It's fucking lush. So yeah, it was great. So I had to decline going to Exeter because I was instead being required to go into the woods and shoot a crossbow. Oh my God.
That sounds like that was fun for you.
I have always wanted to shoot a crossbow, and now I have. It was
what would have
awesome.
been even better is if you had a target of where streeting that you were aiming at or something.
I was tempted to bring one.
Just a purple cut out.
Just to sort it out. Well, at the end of... So after we finished with the firing the crossbows, the very last activity was, okay, we've got some polystyrene heads that we've painted green and made look like zombies. And so now everybody shoot at one of these heads. And so the one that myself and Lexi and Nadia did, all three of us hit it. So there was two big grooves in the top of its head where the skull had been torn open, if it was a real zombie. But yeah, it was just incredibly satisfying, and there's film of it, of all three of us just finding the mark. It was so cool. It was so cool. So yeah, I had a splendid time.
Nice. I ended up not going because I realised a bit late in the game, and also because, so it was the day after my birthday, so I'm now a whole nearly 30 years old. Initially I was like, yeah, I don't mind going down doing this. That would be a cool time. You know, it's a strange, rare opportunity. Why not take it? And then as all of the energy and gumption was needed to handle all of the Supreme Court stuff, by the time that it was sort of nearer, I was so burnt out and so low energy, and I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to make the journey. And on top of that, I kind of just really need a couple of days with my nearest and queerest for my birthday. So
Nice.
I just need to rest. And it was a bit of a shame because I was like, I really want to go. I really want to do this thing. It's very, very good. I was really like, nah. But at the same time, bodies knew what they need. And I had a really good birthday. It was a wonderful time. It was just what I needed.
Yeah, so in the end, I had my fun day trip. By the way, also shout out to Sasha for letting me have their place for the night. So that's all pretty cool.
Lovely jubbly. Yeah, next year we'll make it. Next year it'll be fine. There was something else I was going to mention. I just had it in my head. Well, it's gone now. Oh, panel discussions. Yes. So I did a panel discussion like years and years ago now, like 2017 it was, for Manchester International Festival. And they talked about, so we've got these 4 women on the stage. And one of the things that we started talking about was imposter syndrome. So I was kind of having imposter syndrome while talking about it in front of an audience. It was really weird.
That's a lot of layers to imposter.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So, well, we've heard about. We've kind of all said, "Hey, here's what I've been up to."
Yeah, all just wrapped up in a nice little summary thing.
Yeah, without us needing to specifically ask. Although one thing, you might have heard of Christine and the Queens. The name has been changed now. It's now Rakim Redcar, and I ordered a Rakim Redcar album this week, which turned up earlier today. So when we finish recording, I'm going to go through, I'm going to eat my food, and I'm going to listen to Rakim Redcar.
Nice.
Amazing.
So that's my plan for after we finish recording. Wouldn't that be fun?
My plan after recording is crochet. I've got to crochet so much. Loving it. I really apparently enjoy finding fun little hobbies and immediately putting myself under immense amounts of I want to create so much of it, it's really fun and cool. And then there's a certain point where I'm like, I'm kind of making a mountain out of a molehill, but I'm enjoying it. It's stressful, but I'm loving it. So I'm like at the point where I'm still crocheting lots of stuff with costumes and things, and it's very fun.
Yeah, so
jolly good.
So speaking of making things, there's a
Yeah.
thing that we've been doing that has been sort of made by This Is Biscuit, a really cool bi advocacy organisation, and we're really excited to announce that we are working with This Is Biscuit to sell some trans flag badges.
Yeah. It's actually really cool. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, some of the designs are really cool. So we've got written with what the trans on a different selection of backgrounds, but one of them,
it's just the flags for the start bit.
Oh,
yeah, I think you might be confusing it with the sticker designs that we were looking at recently.
Okay. Because probably because I was thinking about the What the Pans design.
Yeah.
That's a sticker. God damn.
Don't worry, we're still investigating. We've got some really cool stuff of our own branding coming. But this time,
shameless self-plug, I guess, within our own shameless self-plug on our own podcast. So, yeah.
Badges will be available, and we will probably have a think about sending them to like long-term Patreons, people who support us at a certain level to get a badge maybe. But yeah, badges.
Wait. So are we sending out the badges to Patreons, or are we sending out stickers to Patreons? Because you just said badges.
Oh no, I think the stickers we would do. I think it sounds like a logistics question first.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we've confused badges and stickers.
Fine, we're back in the room.
Yeah, so these so these badges.
Alex!
Badges, not stickers.
Right.
This recording's gonna go so smoothly.
Yeah, can already tell.
Right. Back in the room. So these badges come in 3 sizes, and 100% of all the profit from these badges is going towards us at What for Trans to help support with our journalism, to help with send us out to places like Exeter and a whole bunch of places, and send people back and forth from places, and also to provide equipment and all that sort of fun, exciting stuff to keep the lights on. You know, we've got website subscriptions. We could go on all day about all our overheads. So yeah, if you're interested in some really cool badges and want to help support us, check it out. We'll link the link to the store down in the description.
Yeah, and random shout out to any non-binary people called Biscuit. Not for any particular reason. I don't know anyone called Biscuit. I just saw the company name and went, yeah, I'm sure there's a few of us out there with that name. So
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole range of fun non-binary names that I'm all for. Got some good names in there.
Any of them,
yeah,
really.
any of them.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the
you
most cool things about how weirdly multifaceted names can be is the ways in which non-binary people name themselves. It's very cool and interesting to me. But then again, I am non-binary, so of course it will be.
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, I suppose now we've gandered down there, I suppose it's time to have a little walk down Action Alley.
Yeah.
Let's take a
nice-
stroll.
absolutely. Well, it would be a roll for me, but
A stroll
yes.
and a roll, yeah.
A stroll and a roll. Okay, yeah, so the protests with reference to the Supreme Court's recent ridiculous decision are ongoing. There are still more protests being added to our list. You can check out the page on our website specifically about upcoming protests. And if you're organising a protest, just tag us on Blue Sky or on Instagram or something, some manner of way on social media, or contact us, and we will make sure that your protest gets added to the list and gets the word out there.
And I suppose if there isn't protests, there's also still other ways you can fight. So there's petitions on our website. We've also got a big list of compiled petitions in which we're trying to keep updated when they've reached specific areas. So check those out and sign.
And there's still a fundraiser for Trans Legal Clinic going, if anyone has the means and ability to be able to add into that one. And the Good Law Project have guidance on the Supreme Court ruling that they've put out, the good FAQs. So check that out.
Leaning into the news, regrettably, but that's our whole shtick. But don't worry, there won't be as much of a shtick this week because this is a meatless episode.
Yeah, we're going
We've gone
veggie,
vegan.
baby.
Yeah, we're going vegetarian. In fact, several of us already have. But yeah, so this episode should, in theory, be a shorter one.
Famous last words.
Yeah, believe it or not, we always aim for an hour, but the last 2 episodes, you can look at the timestamps yourself.
Yeah, well, you probably felt the timestamps yourself.
Yeah. Well, one was an hour and 50 and one was an hour and 40. So getting on for 2 hours per episode.
Yeah.
And that's just too much, honestly. Well, there's a lot of stuff to put together as well on our side. So we haven't had a thing that we've wanted to put together for the meet this week. So we've just said, okay, let's make it easy on ourselves. Let's give ourselves half a break.
Have a Kit Kat.
We'll just do the news. There is still quite a bit of stuff in the news, but there's not going to be a big long interview at the end of the episode. So yeah, enjoy your half an episode off, dear listener. So let's play that delightful new jingle because it's time to pond hop.
Pond hopping, we're hopping across the pond. How bad could it be?
So first up in pond hopping comes from our very own Viridian Lakes. Yes, our Japanese correspondent, who is also now something of a US correspondent. In their recent article for us, they went over some reactions from key United States health organizations following the hideous HHS report that we talked about on the last episode. We won't go over all of the reactions, but they've all just ripped the shit out of it, basically, and it's pretty glorious to witness. So Viridian's article, definitely worth your time, and we will, of course, link it in the usual place.
Unfortunately, we've got some bad news, as on the 6th of May, a Conservative majority inside the American Supreme Court lifted 2 injunctions from lower courts which had blocked Donald Trump's anti-trans military ban. This now means that 15,000 members of the military will be discharged, something which, according to Executive Director of the Modern Military Association of America, would undermine the readiness of the military, and added that abruptly discharging 15,000 plus service members, especially given that the military's recruiting targets fell short by 41,000 last year, adds administrative burdens to warfighting units, harms unit cohesion, and aggravates critical skill gaps. She told The Independent that there will be a significant financial cost as well as the loss of experience and leadership that will take possibly 20 years and billions of dollars to replace. Yeah, this one's been rattling on since 2016 from what I saw.
Yeah, well, they put a pin in it when Donald Trump wasn't the president, because the administration weren't interested in pursuing a trans-military ban because they kind of had better things to do. This administration do not have better things to do, so they've been charging ahead with it. Despite the measurable harm it will do. Now, there's a whole extra conversation about the military and the worthiness of being part of it, and given that America has become the evil empire that it used to fight against, like, to what extent should trans people be participating in an imperialist project? But right here, for now, 15,000 trans people are about to be out of a job capriciously for like no justifiable reason.
Yeah, like the conversation on military industrial complex is like, would I prefer that people be in the military, with the military being what it's used for and how it's used and whatnot? No, but I think no one should at all be excluded from a job on the basis of, being trans. That's just not, I don't care what the job is. That's a bigoted stance to take, and I'm against bigotry. And I think that it's like one of those things of my issues with the military stand, but that's exactly part of my issues with the military is the culture of the military, which makes this so possible. So I think there's a lot there.
Yeah, and they just somehow don't look at Peter Hegseth, who put all the war plans in Signal or something.
Oh God, yeah, that absolute in the thick of it episode that happened in real life, like that Black Mirror moment, but like OG Black Mirror, where it's just like, oh.
Yeah. So he's not considered to affect unit cohesion and isn't a threat to the military, but apparently trans people are.
Yeah, so. Yet again, a cis dude with a history of being actually dangerous for things is being considered fine in lieu of us being not.
Yeah. Anyway.
Now to turn into an Americanized version of Loser's Corner, we have news out of Montana. I'm not doing that voice anymore. Some of you may know Montana legislation SB 99, which essentially banned any healthcare for trans youth in the state. News of this law spread all over the world, and when it passed there was so much resistance that one trans representative got expelled from the legislative body for calling out the murderous intent of it. Thankfully, a court has now struck down the ban for good after deciding it violated the state's constitution. In reaction to this, the legendary legislator Zoe Sophia said the following: "I'm glad this bill has been permanently defeated and that Montana's constitution continues to protect trans people from government overreach and animus." And in response to a comment asking whether any of the legislators who passed the bill had apologised to Zoe, she said the following: "I neither want nor care for their apology. They will simply be footnotes in the story of trans liberation." Fucking rights. Good on you. Yeah.
Nice.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. Zoe Zephyr and her wife is Erin Reed from Erin in the Morning. So those two are just kicking ass and taking names in America.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Power couple.
Power couple, exactly.
Very much so.
And Yeah, it's good to see that Bill
So-
get kicked the shit out of.
Yeah, definitely.
because that is oh god, a world without a gotten through, horrifying. I mean, yeah. It's any victory is an amazing victory right now, but that's a particularly big one that we shouldn't just breeze over and go, oh, I think failed. Like, that's a massive amount of lives that have been saved. That's a massive amount of
Yep.
pain that has been prevented, and harm that's been prevented, and I'm glad for it. Savor it, folks. Savor it up.
Save it
Yep.
up, there's still a fight.
Yeah, quite. But it's not a... Clearly, it's not an insurmountable, unwinnable fight, right? Because there are victories. Like, pretty consistently, there's stuff like this that gets struck down in state courts or, well, maybe not by the Supreme Court, but there is still resistance to this stuff. Yeah. So, you know, just saying, take that, hold it close to your chest and say, you know, we won this, we can win a bunch of other stuff.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so speaking of insurmountable odds that we thought would be impossible, the next story seems like my first reaction was, what next? Pigs are going to fly?
Yes, quite, because we're back in the UK now, and news of the absolute bare minimum. Brighton, London, Birmingham and Manchester Prides have released a joint statement saying that political parties will be banned from their events until the needs of the trans community are addressed. A few days later, Glasgow Pride followed suit. Now, that joint statement says, in part, that it is a, quote, direct call for accountability and a refusal to platform those who have not protected our rights, and that the Pride organisations will not, quote, stand by as the dignity, safety and humanity of our trans siblings are debated, delayed or denied, which, yes, good. That's exactly what should be happening, right? LGBTQ plus organisations standing up and saying no and defending trans people. This comes 2 weeks after an open letter created by Trans Safety Network and signed by What the Trans was released calling on Pride organisations to ban transphobic political parties from officially attending Pride or being in their marches or parades. Now, as you can imagine, there's been some, you know, let's just say reactions to this from the mainline parties and their LGBTQ plus organisations, and we're going to look at those in a little more detail, starting with Labour. And they were pretty obviously the target of this decision given their recent actions, so presumably their membership has taken this criticism on board and has used this as an opportunity for some self-reflection and vowed to do better, right? Of course not. They've complained loudly about it, for is it not written, hell hath no fury like a cis ally who's been gently criticised. The group Pride in Labour, who are keen to stress that they're not affiliated with the Labour Party, nevertheless claim that they're working for change from within, which... Wait, what? How can you be working for change from within in an organisation that you're not affiliated with? From Perpetual Unsurety on Reddit, who put it really well when saying, you can't have it both ways, and you can't both condemn the Labour Party's failings and get upset when people associate your Labour and also not Labour group named for the Labour Party with the Labour Party. So, seems weird, but we'll park that for now because there's some amazing whinging to address. In the statement, Pride and Labour have said, Pride in Labour exists to challenge the Labour Party where it falls short in protecting LGBTQIA plus rights. While we are not formally affiliated with the party, we carry its name, and that can be both a strength and a burden. Okay, go on, We often face pushback from trans activists and allies who associate us with the National Party's failings. We hear that, and we don't dismiss it. But, hey, there it is. We also believe now, more than ever, unity is crucial. Now, we just knew that but was going to creep in somewhere. So the statement goes on and says that we risk isolating allies and that we urge Pride organisers and the wider community to not vilify those who are using their voices, their positions and risking their memberships on a daily basis to demand better from the Labour government. And I'm just fuck your membership, right? All this stuff is risking our lives every time we step outside or are outed by the policies of your government.
But that's enough about Labour, though, so let's talk about the Lib Dems, who actually put out a statement even more quickly than Pride and Labour did. It's only a couple of paragraphs long, but also contains some top-tier bitching, so let's start with this bit. While we understand Pride's organisers' frustrations with Labour and the Conservatives swithering on LGBT+ and especially trans rights of late, we are sickened to our core to be lumped together with them in a blanket suspension on political parties attending major prides this year. Liberal Democrats and Liberals before us have been at the forefront of campaigning for LGBT+ rights from the Wolfenden Report onwards, and we are proud to be the most progressive GB-wide party to this day.
The way they essentially said it was, we're the only good ones. Let us come over and flog merch at your Pride event, please. Ooh, small bean.
Also, I know that they've broken out the phrase sickened to our core for this, but not, for example, the Supreme Court judgment or the Cass review or the appalling press coverage of either of those two things.
The second paragraph ramps up this "we reach special us" rhetoric even more. When it says, we firmly believe Pride is a protest and that all organisations should have to earn their presence. We also think LGBT+ Lib Dems have more than done this over the last few years. Convenient, no? Yes, you need to earn a place, but we've already done that, so you should let us in without any further action. That's nice for them, isn't it? In fact, Tom Morrison, Lib Dem MP for Cheadle, went so far as to put in an early day motion at the Houses of Parliament, saying, quote, "This House regrets the decision taken by the organisers of several Pride marches and parades across the UK to not allow political parties to march." Then lists a bunch of other things that this House regrets, like the Supreme Court ruling, rising levels of hate crime, and a bunch of other stuff the Lib Dems have done sod all about. So far, it's got 18 signatories to it, so all of which come from other Lib Dems.
Yes. So, like when this story popped up, when the joint statement from London, Brighton, Birmingham and Manchester Pride, because I was not expecting Manchester Pride to do that.
Yeah, neither
genuinely.
London Pride.
Yeah, exactly. So there was some spirited discussion in the team, wasn't there, when this dropped?
Yeah, it was some really spirited discussion. We were just like, what? They did that? What?
Yeah, like fucking A.
I thought I hallucinated it. I was like, it's so unlikely that this was going to happen. Like
It felt that way, yeah. It felt that way. I mean, considering a lot of the other kind of, shortfalls we've seen, we'll say, with things like sponsors and funding and whatnot.
Yeah, they still need to step up on that, though.
But they absolutely need to do. I'm not going to say that this ergo is, this is a step. This is a step, and that's a really important thing. And I'm fucking glad for it. And also, by the way, one of the prides around here has done so as well. Bishop Auckland Pride
nice.
Decided to not invite any political parties, which is good and nice. But yeah, when I saw the responses, when I saw the statements in response, that made my piss boil. Yeah, my piss simmering, because there's no way. I'll call it what it is, right? A lot of the responses that we've seen here smack of manipulation. And one of the things that really, really got to me in this was the argument of Pride has always been a protest, because that's where it feels manipulative. Because it's like, and why? And why? Tell me again why Pride was a protest and why it is a protest. Because it's not a protest because all of the political parties wanted to set up a thing. No, it was because none of the political parties were doing a single damn thing about it. So it just feels very entitled to me, some of the responses that we've seen, very entitled to our space, very entitled to our culture. And there seems to be a lack of recognition that fundamentally, if you are showing up in an official capacity, you are promoting. And there's no way you can get around that. You can't deny that that's the power dynamics. No amount of personal, emotional investment or family investment is going to change the fact that if you're turning up in an official capacity with a company or with a political party, you're turning up in an official capacity.
Yeah, I will say the Lib Dems, it wasn't a good look on them at all, and it was a very, in my opinion, it was a bad decision to make. I wouldn't have done it, and it's just opened them up to say, for people to go, so what has your party done? Because a lot of the time people presumed they were all right, but it opened them up for scrutiny that then just showed, yeah, but did you really do that stuff? And it's a shot in the foot, really.
Yeah, because it honestly, it's kind of showing their priorities right now. And I don't like that seems to be where their priorities are at. You're sticking to your core and you can turn around a statement within a couple of hours over this. That's...
Yeah, but you can't push back in a more meaningful way.
Also, yeah.
Push back.
Yeah, because when people say when you say you've done a lot, unfortunately, we don't need what's good, we need your best.
Mm-hmm.
And we need everything now. This is
and we need your solidarity, and we need your support for our human rights to not be tied to your access to us. Like, that's inherently weird. Like, that's inherently not okay. You shouldn't be supporting us so you get more access to us, and so you get to be more up in our business. That's not what human rights are about. So please, can we focus on the fact that human rights are about human rights? It doesn't matter if you don't get invited to our parties or protests. What matters is doing what you can within the system, because fundamentally, if you're turning up in an official capacity, you are turning up and representing a facet of the system that has held us down for so long and has been actively harming us and gunning for us. So, respectfully, we have a right to not invite.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I'm getting off my soapbox now. I'm picking up the soapbox and I'm putting it down and I'm setting it away.
Yeah.
No, it's all right.
And Pride and Labour is, I think we pretty much got the same sentiments, really. I mean,
yeah, like this.
I think it's worse with Pride and Labour, to be honest.
Yeah, like these are my thoughts and feelings about all of the statements and shenanigans that have been of this vibe. Like, not towards any particular party, any particular people. You know, if you feel, you know, that you're part of the people we're talking about when we're like, hey, this isn't the vibe, then please, like, genuinely consider and assess that. Like, it's yeah.
Yeah. And even if you don't leave Labour, at least give us some extra inside sources, please. We need insiders.
Well, it's, for me, and this is probably the last thing I should say on it before we should probably move on. But for me, the Pride and Labour response in particular was just such a twisty little, like, oh, well, you know, we're trying to bring change from within. It's like, how and in what way have you been succeeding? And in what way are you even listened to? Like, just it's extremely frustrating, the fact that they're pushing back about the fact that they're not allowed to go to Pride. There's nothing stopping these people from going to Pride.
Absolutely.
You know, wearing a different T-shirt.
Completely. Right? Completely encourage anyone and everyone that would turn up with an official party to turn up in their own capacity. Like, of course. You know, but yeah, it's not saying anyone that's a member of any political party is not allowed.
Yeah. Although it must be said, the fact that Labour aren't going to be at Manchester Pride means that I had a very interesting idea for a very visual protest, which I'm now going to have to put back in the box for another day.
Yeah. When I went to Exeter Pride, apparently this was before the Pride bans, but Labour had went to every single Exeter Pride until this year. So they were obvious, even if they weren't allowed to go, I don't think many would.
They weren't there.
Because they wouldn't be able to show their faces.
Notable by their absence. Hi everyone, Ashleigh from the slightly more recent past here to talk about how Pride and Labour have actually released a second statement in which they apologise for the first one, but in a very, we're sorry you feel that way, tell us what to do to make it better, but don't hold us to account sort of way. We'll include a link to that statement in our references, of course. In the meantime, the Greens have also put out their own statement, which feels a lot nearer the mark. The vibe being, we don't really agree with the decision, but we do understand it. We can only assume they watched how everyone else did it first and then took their time over it, seeing how the community was responding to everyone else. We'll include a link to that too, of course. Now, back to the show! Okay, so that's enough bitching about the government. Oh, wait, no.
Oh, God. So as you may have seen on the news, the Data Use and Access Bill has drawn a bit of attention in the trans news lately. It's a gargantuan piece of proposed legislation because data is used and accessed and stored in all kinds of ways for all kinds of things. We're not going to do a full explainer, but notably the bill contains provisions for an opt-in digital identification system that should help streamline paperwork for everyone using it. Dealing with data relating to trans people inevitably means data relating to gender and sex. Throughout the bill's history, some of the points and positions raised have basically been ripped straight from a Sex Matters briefing. However, just because some nitwit proposes an idea, that doesn't mean it automatically gets in. Creating new laws involves a whole lot of back and forth in the Commons and in the Lords, and between the two houses as a whole. Anyway, Tory MP Ben Spencer put forward an amendment known as NC21, saying that sex assigned at birth was the only type of sex worth recording. It went as far as to suggest that trans people's existing documents should be corrected to then match their sex assigned at birth, and obviously this proposed amendment was problematic as hell. A whole lot of trans people shared their worries about NC21, and this was noticed by MP Nadia Whitome, who shared a post on Instagram of the amendment being discussed in Parliament, saying that the government intended to vote against it. And when that discussion finally came, we heard 4 reasons from the government as to why NC21 would not be supported, and why the government does not intend to do anything like it. So the first reason is that it undermined current projects, like the ongoing efforts of the Data Standards Authority. The second one is that the point of the bill is to give people the option of using digital systems instead of physical ones. Changing people's existing documents is not in the scope of the bill. Also, the things that the digital verification system is intended to engage with, like streamlining job applications, should not require sex or gender info. And lastly, it would conflict with other laws, notably the Human Rights Act. And those were some of the reasons. And finally, NC21 was voted out by a significant margin, 363 to 97. And the breakdown of that vote falls perfectly down party lines. So, there's still a couple of steps to go before the Data Use and Access Bill becomes law. But there are quick stages where there's not that much discussion.
So this bill kind of did a whole back and forth thing.
Yeah.
That you might not have seen because it was all over in the space of a couple of days, wasn't it? The Lord said, no, we want this amendment in. And then the government sent it back to the Lord saying, well, we're not putting it in. So shut up.
Yeah.
Try and put it through again.
Yes, but then they pinged it back again, said no, fuck off.
Yeah, so it's that I would say ping pong, but it's going to be badminton, isn't it, for the House of Lords and Commons? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's playing that game.
Yeah. I mean, the fun bit, apparently, I think I've seen a lot of people look at the Parliament TV to see the sad face of Wes Streeting, who was obviously whipped to vote against the bill. Obviously looking like he wanted to ruin trans lives, but he had to vote against the bill. So it's fun seeing him have a sad day.
Yeah, that's always good. Definitely up for Wes Streeting having more dodgy days, really.
Yeah, that would be good for me.
So the bill was just a big panic, wasn't it? Because it all kind of built up within the space of a few days, and then it was defeated, and then suddenly it all rose up again because the Lords said they wanted the amendment and sent it back to the Commons, and we were like, oh God, no, are the government gonna... Oh wait, no, they didn't. And it was all over in the space of a day or two, just that whole process of getting pinged back to the Commons from the Lords and getting bounced back again. So we're now in the situation where the Lords have it, and that amendment is almost certainly not going to go in. So fantastic. That is good news.
Yes, it is good news. So, the IGLA's annual Rainbow Map was released this week. It shows breakdowns of LGBTI rights across Europe and Central Asia. There's colour-coded maps and ranking tables and various bits of analysis on many fronts. The whole website is pretty nifty, so do check it out. Though for now, we're just going to try and focus on putting some context to the changes in the UK's ranking. A decade ago, the UK was ranked first, but it's been consistently sinking in the rankings ever since. And this year, the UK's had one of the sharpest drops of any country. So in this year's overall ranking, the steepest drops were from Hungary and Georgia, both which fell 7 places, meanwhile the UK fell 6. After this latest decline, the UK now sits at its lowest ever position, 22nd place out of 49 of the ILGA's overall ranking. The reason the UK has dropped so hard, it's failures in trans rights. Although the ILGA review covers a period of January through to December of 2024, the recent Supreme Court judgment is actually part of the ILGA's consideration. After all, our court didn't make any new law, it just decided how the law was supposed to have been read all along. In a briefing, the ILGA explained how it evaluated the impact of the UKSC judgment. It said that because a GRC no longer determines sex in equality law, a GRC no longer determines sex for all purposes. So the ILGA reasons that if there's no legal gender recognition in the UK, or if that recognition is incoherent, then the UK can't be awarded points that rely on it. As such, in terms of gender recognition only, the ILGA has this year given the UK a rating of 6.57%. We're at the very bottom of the listings, alongside Bulgaria, Georgia, Hungary, and Russia. The only reason we're as high as 6.57% is that there's no trans-specific restriction on changing names. In theory, the ILGA's latest ranking should serve to call out the UK for its recent failings, and whatever problems are likely to be caused by the upcoming EHRC policy, though the ILGA ranking isn't just about us, or just about the countries with steep drops in the ranking. The ILGA warns that all countries need to be vigilant in protecting LGBTI rights. So yeah, I love colour coding.
Yeah.
I did not like this colour coding. It's a shame.
So, do you mean you didn't like it for the information it demonstrated, or...?
No, the information it demonstrated was good and correct. It's just a shame to see it so starkly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, agreed. Because if you put it up for trans rights only, because you can sort and filter it by, all sorts of different kinds of legislation and rights and whatever. But if you filter it just for trans rights, the UK is as red as Russia.
Yeah.
Like at the very bottom of the league tables. We're only just above Russia, Georgia, Bulgaria, and Hungary. And Russia and Hungary in particular have got anti-LGBT laws, haven't they?
Yeah.
Literal restrictions. And considering the only reason we're only that little bit higher because there's no specific restrictions on name changes. It's just, and we were at the top at one point, and clearly, nope.
It's a low
Not
bar,
anymore.
but they are determined to dig underneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next thing you'll get Labour
pretty
putting
much.
a statement to say we apologise for not being low enough on the board. We'll make sure to beat Russia next year.
So the thing is, the decline started after 2016. And there was a particular thing that happened in 2016 that affected our relationship with Europe, and it affected the quality of the people that we then had in charge. For the avoidance of doubt, it was Brexit, which was still the stupidest possible thing we could have done, and yet we did it, because an advisory referendum that wasn't even legally binding said that we should. It's fucking ridiculous. And things have been going to shit since then, unfortunately. And Keir Starmer seems really keen on kind of turning the car all the way to the right and slamming down on the accelerator.
I mean, yeah, dude's currently quoting Enoch Powell, so...
Right?
We're at that point now, I guess.
Yeah, Islands of Strangers. How it started and how it's going are two very, very different ILGA maps. Anyway, okay, so a little closer to home. Let's talk about the EHRC.
Oh, God.
What a delight! Yeah, hooray! What a tremendous
What's
thing.
she done this time?
So, well, it's actually stuff that has been done to the EHRC, which is two different committees have written to Baroness Faulkner, who is, of course, the chair of the EHRC, about that interim update that published on the 25th of April that we talked about in the last episode. The committees also asked about the EHRC's plans for writing the actual guidance. Quick reminder, the EHRC update is not legal policy, it's more of a statement of intent. When the EHRC creates its new statutory code of practice, that has to be put before Parliament and then approved by government ministers. Creating it has to involve some amount of consultation. The EHRC update indicated that only 2 weeks of consultation would be sought from affected stakeholders, and the update suggested that the EHRC will not seek views on the legal aspects of the guidance because it believes the Supreme Court made everything clear. So, with that in mind, let's look at those two letters sent to the EHRC chair, and then we'll talk a little bit about that consultation period. So, starting with the Joint Committee on Human Rights, in its letter asked Faulkner a bunch of questions like, is a 2-week consultation period really long enough? What's the legal status of the EHRC's interim update? And will there be an obligation to provide services for trans people? Rather pointedly, the Joint Committee also asks why the EHRC update makes no mention of the need to treat trans people with dignity and respect, especially when the Supreme Court was very clear that this should be the case. Then, the Women and Equalities Committee wrote their letter to Faulkner shortly after. It directly suggested that rather than only 2 weeks of consultations, there should be a minimum of 6 weeks. The WEC also noted that although the EHRC has no plans to seek legal views in its consultations, there's a possibility some legal issues may have been beyond the scope of the Supreme Court's discussion. As such, the committee asked if maybe the EHRC should accept some submissions on legal matters. The WEC asked if the full guidance would clarify the rights of trans people, specifically in relation to the current strip search policy of the British Transport Police, which, again, you can probably guess I'm going to say this, we talked about on the last episode. And finally, it asked how will the EHRC's upcoming Code of Practice be enforced? So I do hope that the EHRC's replies to these committees' letters are made public at some point. However, these letters have already had an effect, and the EHRC has shared some more details about the upcoming consultation. Frustratingly, the EHRC has insisted it's still not seeking views on the legal aspects. Seemingly their angle is just to check people understand what their proposed guidance says, but crucially, it has announced that the consultation will be 6 weeks, and it will run from the 19th of May to the 30th of June. More information about the consultation is set to come out when it launches on Monday. So that'll be the same day that this podcast goes live.
So,
So
I think when the consultation comes out, we'll definitely be sharing information on how to fill in the consultation.
Oh, yes.
Basically, what we've been hearing is we need to flood their inbox like a fucking tsunami, because the longer it takes for them to do the consultation and to process all the responses, if things run over past the summer recess, some very interesting things could happen to Faulkner. But that's all I can say. So flood the shit out of them. It might actually be quite funny.
So yeah, more information on that when it surfaces, but it's, everybody's pushing back against the EHRC, which has been wonderful to witness, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah, as they should.
If Faulkner ever gets fired, maybe we should. Who knows? I should so organise a party outside the EHRC office.
Oh yeah, I don't think you'll be the only one.
Yeah,
Street party.
Yeah, the Fired
Street
Faulkner
party.
Festival.
So So,
Oh, where are you going this weekend? Oh, I'm off to the Triple F.
Oh,
that sounds like a football club. Speaking of,
Doesn't it?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, with all the anti-trans sport talk, I know it can be challenging, but hopefully this one is easy to keep you uppy with. Huh? Huh? Okay, sorry, I'll try and stay on side. All right, I'm done now. So, one of the teams that have been fighting back on all of the regressive policies that have swept through the nation is Gold Diggers FC, a trans, non-binary led football club. They recently completed a 12-mile walk from their training pitch in East London to Wembley to hand-deliver a letter to the FA chief, Mark Bullingham, calling to reverse the ban. The letter was signed by over 1,600 people. Now, Bully Boy Bullingham has now given a formal response, which was essentially boiled down to the ban being, quote, not ideological, and that he's aware of the impact it'll have and is causing, and, quote, working with all registered trans players to stay in football. But you didn't reverse the ban, did you, Bully? The thing that actually is stopping the trans players. Also, if you admit you know you've done something harmful, you don't get to just go, it's not ideological and we're still talking to the trans people registered. As if that changes at all, that you're knowingly causing harm and excluding people. Just because you think that's what the law is demanding. Thank God you weren't born in an earlier time, because we all know exactly where that logic got people.
Yeah.
And then going like, oh yeah, we'll just give you referee training. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
referee training's
yeah.
a real fucking issue. And he's now just responded with a basic nothing answer. This reliance on this is what I'm being told to do is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real problem.
I was
Following
only
orders.
following orders. Yeah. The yuppie... No. It's not the yuppie Nuremberg defense, because the yuppie Nuremberg defense is, oh, I'm only doing it for the mortgage. It's just the Nuremberg defense, aka command responsibility.
Yeah.
So it turns out if your orders are like immoral and potentially illegal, you have a responsibility to resist them.
I think some of the reactions I saw about the ban was, I saw a post about Emily Waldron, about her being absolutely heartbroken at not being allowed to play as part of her football teams she's with, and having to tell her friends that she's not going to be able to play football with them anymore because she's been banned for just being who she is. And it was just absolutely heartbreaking to just see.
So more of this, though, more of like a groundswell of support and getting thousands of people to sign letters and doing notable things to deliver them and stuff, like walking 12 miles
quite
and
good, actually.
Yeah,
across
that's really
London.
Good. And I think they initially it was going to be, I think, just like them, and then they opened it up to others as well, and like made the letter a more open thing and everything. I think, if I remember that correctly. I'm now doubting myself in real time because it involves using my short-term memory.
But no, 'cause I think I saw there was quite a good turnout from when I saw the picture of them delivering the letter.
Yeah, there really was.
Yeah.
And it's good. Exactly the kind of thing that you need to see.
Pretty much, yeah. And let them know that we're not just going to let them do it.
Yeah. And also, you don't have. Also, for those people looking for LGBT hiking groups, I'm sure there's some out there. You don't have to do a 12-mile walk and deliver a letter. But
yeah, there's ramblers. You can do rock climbing. There's lots of cool ways to be active and to get cool skills, which would be good and then useful in sudden, immediately active situations where you might need to climb a building. I don't know. Maybe that's related to a story.
Yeah, we'll see about that later on. But I suppose the football ban isn't the only impact that's happened from Fuck It Up Faulkner. So, on the 13th of May, there was a leak on Reddit. A leak in which it detailed that Warrick University had made changes to their policy on facilities, essentially calling for a toilet ban. Pretty much repeating the EHRC verbatim. In a leaked policy we managed to obtain before the university took down the link, it said the following. Trans people may use facilities such as toilets and changing rooms that are 1. Identified as those for the trans person's sex assigned at birth, or 2. That are identified as gender neutral. Trans people may not use single-sex spaces identified as being for the gender that is not their sex assigned at birth. Basically a set toilet ban and segregation. This, of course, raised a lot of anger in the community, and there's been such a reaction that the university has been forced to rewrite the comms and remove the draft version. So in a sense, the policy won't be coming soon, but it will be coming. So, in a statement given to us when I hounded them on the phones, Warrick University told us the following. We are deeply sorry for the pain and upset caused by the recent draft version of our Trans Inclusion Code of Conduct, which was inadvertently published in error. In light of the Equality and Human Rights Commission's interim guidance and legal developments, we are continuing to review our policy. In a statement, Pink News, a UCU spokesperson at Warrick, said, "We will be taking time to carefully consider how we can best advocate for the most inclusive policies and practices across our workplaces. This will include listening to and learning from our members, especially those with lived experience, to ensure that our approach is as informed, effective and inclusive as possible." So yeah, that was my whole Monday pretty much. Trying to chase everything up.
Trying to get hold of Warrick University on the phone.
Yeah.
Or trying to get something out of them, I guess. Excellent. Well, I'm glad they seem to be a little bit more on board than Warrick University. It's like Warrick University and Barclays and the BTP and all the ones who are kind of doing it this early and complying in advance before any actual proper guidance by the EHRC has been issued. So fuck them.
Yeah, as we said in our Action Alley, if you've got some people, you can send them the Good Law Projects version, which is probably more competent than what the EHRC would probably put out, admittedly.
Indeed.
Yeah, at this point, the EHRC has made it pretty clear they have a vested interest. So, actually, vested interest, I mean that colloquially, not in the legal sense, but,
They've made it clear that they are not a neutral party.
Absolutely. That's 100%. They're completely incapable of being impartial at this point. They have been captured.
Upon further observation, they are a bit dodgy.
Yeah. That is the official legal term, isn't it?
Yeah. Dodge. Well dodge, mate.
Well dodge. So
moving on.
Let's dodge away from this and go and visit a certain corner.
Yes. Loser's Corner.
Loser's Corner.
So on the 10th of May, a peer-reviewed paper was published in the medical journal BMC Medical Research Methodology titled Critically Appraising the CAS Report, Methodological Flaws and Unsupported Claims. The paper, by Chris Noon and 20 other co-authors, had previously been available to read as a preprint, but we're glad to see it is finally published. The work takes a critical look at the CAS review and its associated research, including the systematic reviews undertaken for it by the University of York. It describes a high risk of bias in the York reviews, in part due to unexplained deviations from stated research protocols. It suggests that there was a double standard at play when evaluating evidence for gender-affirming care. Gee, who knew? It points out contributors to the CAS Review's qualitative study had their quotes misrepresented. It described the CAS Review's attitude towards randomised control trials as being, at best, naive, showing a profound misunderstanding of transness. It mentions some of the points made by the CAS Review were wholly unevidenced, like its suggestion that the number of detransitioners was increasing. All this makes it feel like the CAS report was on shaky ground when making its recommendations. Noon and colleagues, in their conclusions, said it is vital to question the integrity and validity of the review's recommendations and the appropriateness of basing health policy on them. And that's good.
So the findings of the that report was certainly interesting. When it mentioned about the CAS Review's attitude towards randomised control trials, I was just thinking there isn't obsession at this point. It's its fetish.
It was.
Of CAS.
Yeah.
But none of this stuff was surprising to us, of course, was it? Because we ourselves, and we're not academics, right? But we were able to see and find out about quite a lot of the misinformation that was part of the cast report, right? So we were able to do that. A scrappy band of podcasting miscreants were able to do that.
So with the scientist giving us the cliff notes on the odd little bit on that episode.
We did have some help, didn't we?
Just a little bit.
Just a smidge.
Just a smidgen of expertise and peer review.
Yeah. Well, which was more than the cast review had.
No, absolutely. Way, get right.
Yeah. So, always like to see the cast report get another drubbing in public, particularly one because this is the BMC medical research, right? So it's
British
British Medical Council, and it's quite a well-known journal, and it's quite respected. So the fact that they are saying, "Look, this ain't it, Chief," is good. It's a good thing to see.
Okay, so just to give fair warning, this segment contains discussion of suicide, so if that's too much for you right now, please feel free to skip. But some of you may wish to stick around because it is about our favourites again. So yes, that's right. This segment is quickly becoming a Trans Kids Deserve Better check-in spot. And you know what? I'm not even mad about it. I'm actually quite hyped. Because this week they took us back to one of the spots that got massive coverage when they last went there. You might remember July last year when they occupied the space above the entrance to NHS England headquarters and camped there for 4 days in response to the puberty blocker ban that specifically targeted only trans children. But, bringing us back to the present, on the 11th of May, windows of that very same building, Wellington House, were covered with bloody handprints of red paint and bold dripping letters like the horror movies that our healthcare has now become, as they wrote the words, "Release the Trans Suicide Youth Report." This is all due to the fact that we know this is being withheld because not only was the report finished in March last year, let me say that again, March last year, even when the Good Law Project asked for a copy, they were rejected, being told it would be released in 2026. Now, whatever reason they could give for that, which is apparently, quote, ongoing conversations with NHS England, according to Trans Kids Deserve Better, an article on their website, there's not a good enough reason on this planet to ever knowingly leave children at a greater risk of suicide for over 2 years when you know that you have the ability to do more. That is the actions of the cruel and callous, and at worst it comes off downright bloodthirsty under the guise of bureaucracy. They also wrote the words "silence equals death," which is the same slogan used by ACT UP when protesting the lack of response and support during the AIDS epidemic in the 80s. This was alongside other classics like Trans Kids Deserve Better. And hey, listen, I know some people may be sitting at home thinking, well, there's a proper way things need to be done, and we can't just say that a delay means that the NHS is trying to cover up suicides. And those people are unlikely to be listening to the pod right now, but I'll respond to the notion anyway, because I too would agree that a lack of evidence is not the same as evidence to the contrary. However, this argument is not purely based on the delay. If you're wondering how seriously the NHS is tackling the suicides that have happened, we should let you know that there is a report commissioned by the NHS, completed by Professor Lewis Appleby, which tried to debunk the widely circulated claim that 16 trans young people had died from suicide following the Belle v Tavistock case. Now, that alone gives off vibes so rancid a raccoon would refuse to eat it, and I am being somewhat lighthearted because if my heart sinks any further right now, I'll cry. The fact is, they made a report to discredit the real lives and deaths of marginalised children after being denied care, rather than to uphold their duties. It is heartbreaking and enraging. This report has repeatedly been shown to have been flawed beyond its first point. Firstly, Alex has previously covered the internal culture of intimidation at Tavistock and also that leadership inside the centre telling staff that the number was from their own data, with some members of staff saying it's likely, quote, a cover-up. It was also found that it decided to not include the death of Alice Lippman in its own report, amongst many other criticisms putting doubt on the accuracy and intent of the report, which, by the way, Streeting still quotes. If they can deny we are dying, they don't even have to deny that it's them killing us. So yeah, the fact that the National Child Mortality Database is being similarly suppressed is of extreme concern. I'm going to close this off by quoting the article that Trans Kids Deserve Better wrote on this. The paint on NHS England's HQ will wash away with a wet cloth, unlike the suffering the government has caused the trans community. And, should we get into get into the meat, maybe?
How can you make pudding if you don't eat your meat?
Well, we could do.
If there was
Oh.
any.
Dun, dun,
Oh, they make you look here like you are.
No meat, big feet.
As meatless as the arguments for the cast review.
Ooh, yes, very nicely done, nicely done. Yeah, so there isn't going to be a meet this time. There might be a few more episodes coming up where it's just going to be a news digest rather than one with a big interview right at the end. Yeah.
Yes. So in Trans Joy, there is a new voice pack that is being made or released for VTubers. This one was provided to us by Shroomy. And it's a really cool little thing because the voice provider, we think, identifies as a genderless trans man. It's always good to see trans people finding success. So congratulations to Koyunosuke. Groovy.
Yeah. So, go on, what's Transcraft?
So, I've been going to a nice little transcraft night in my local area, and it's been very cool. And recently, we did placard making, and that's just fun and nice. And it's been, it's just been really good, just being in a space that's like, I don't know, centered on community that's not responding to a terrible thing in particular. It's just about, let's just make some fun stuff. People can turn up with other crafts if they want and stuff like that. I was there crocheting because that's currently all my hands want to do. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing. It's a very cool, fun time.
That's nice. That's good. So, a couple of bits from our Discord. Laura, Queen of Seagulls, said, "This morning there was a lady at the gym wearing a t-shirt with trans rights, human rights on it. I had to go up to her and compliment her and thank her. She said she's cis and supports us all the way. I could have cried. I've never seen a public show of support for us anywhere around where I live before." Which, yeah, it's always nice to see that, isn't it?
Yeah. That reminds me of a time where I was in Newcastle, and it was just around. I remember going outside and briefly going for a quick walk outside of the venue, and I was just feeling a little bit, because I was dressed particularly queer. And then I saw two people walking down the street with a gigantic trans flag. There was no big event on that day. There was no protest going about. I don't know why or where they were taking it to, but there were, and I was, from feeling very anxious and looking over my shoulder every time, I suddenly went running over the road to them and tapped them on the shoulder and said, "I just want to say, I love that. That makes me feel happy and safe and seen." And it was just on the outskirts of the gay area. And they were just like, "Yep, that's why we're wearing it out." And I was just like, yeah, that's what you need.
Nice. Yeah. Agreed. You need that sometimes, don't you? So I've got some joy. It wasn't trans joy as such, but I went to a really good gig recently. It was Peter Hook and the Light. So they did like 2 sets at the very start. They did like a load of Peter Hook and the Light songs, and then there was a 10-minute break, and then they did a load of Joy Division and New Order songs, more or less in chronological order. Apart from the big hits right at the end, where the very last song they played was, of course, Love Will Tear Us Apart. And I was there with my partners, both of whom are trans, and we were just all... we were just vibing, enjoying it together. Yeah, that was a fucking great gig. And, that's not trans joy, but it was joy for me, because I can get out and do stuff. Even though I'm in a wheelchair, I can still go and do these things.
Fuck yeah.
I like it.
Absolutely. This reminds me
it.
of a small element of trans joy as well, that on my birthday I ended up also at a gig, and I saw Mums Against Donk, who I really like. It's Mums Against, it was one of the DJs from Mums Against Donk, Alterium, who is queer, and Mums Against Donk is a queer rave thing, and shout out to them. And also while I'm there, shout out to Scottish Gabba Punks and shout out to Hang the DJs, because they both gave out their own fucking badass statements of go fuck yourselves regarding the Supreme Court ruling. So that's cool. But yeah, I saw Alterum play. Very fucking cool. Very much enjoyed that. It was, cheeky, goofy, heavy in your face. Beautiful.
Nice.
Approved.
And I suppose with that,
All right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's us. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. We love you. Stay safe. Oh, and write to your MP as well. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Mwah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun. This episode of What the Trans... Sorry, let me start that again. This episode of What the Trans was produced and presented by Ashleigh, Alyx and Flint and was written by Sammy, Alyx, Ashleigh and Flint. It was edited by Amber Roberts and Amber Devereaux, with our opening theme music composed by Warrick Yui Karlberg. Our episode thumbnail artwork was created by Opoa Pairs, and transcription performed by Sam Wyman, Rowan B, Rachel Aldred and Georgia Griffiths. We would also like to thank our producer-level Patreons, who are Mikhail Jarjar,
Danielle Hardwick,
Ashleigh.
Heather Patterson,
Mel,
Michael Coolwood.
Toby,
Brienne O'Neill,
Gorestar.
Undead Narfa,
Susan K. Quinn,
Les.
Brian Goss,
Bex the Mermaid,
Hazel Dust.
Laura, Queen of Seagulls,
Becky Cheetle,
Jordan Starr.
Lee Downs,
Lindsay Cannon,
George Simmons.
Carly Silvers,
B Squared,
Smiley, friend of Candy from across the pond.
the Socialist Party of Great Britain 1904,
Sarah,
Eris.
Tin Roof.
Naystrom,
Lex Phoenix.
Picked the wrong week to start transing my gender.
Womp womp. I'm sorry, that's so rude.
Andrea Brooks,
Jack Edwards.
Stefan Blakemore,
Now Art,
Needles and Threads.
Flaming Daphne,
Dr. McGee,
Jen.
Katie Reynolds,
Georgia Holden Burnett,
Grabalicious.
Mix Afon,
Root -1,
Gray.
Beth Anderson,
Bernice Roust,
Ellen Meller.
Jay Hoskins,
Shrowan,
Ashleigh.
Set Cab,
Jane,
Roberta DePrunk.
Rose Absolute,
Sarah,
Cena.
Kiki T,
D,
Sky Kalayan.
Eric Widman,
B,
Monsieur Squirrel.
Fergus Evans,
Anubis a Jackal,
Brandon Craig.
Break the System,
Sean Phillips,
Heidi Reardon.
Lentil,
Clara Volume,
Amelia.
Samantha Raven,
Tabitha Joe Cox, aka Candy,
Fiona McDonald.
Murgatroyd,
Ontologically Unjust,
Stella.
Cindergosa,
Rebecca Prentice,
Crazy Richard.
Dan Oblivion,
Helen,
Al Gray.
Melody Nix,
Fiona Punchard,
John.
C.B. Bailey,
Gordon Cameron,
Ted Delphos.
Kai Lewin,
Vic Parsons,
Patreon user.
Vic Kelly,
Catherine,
Sabrina McVeigh.
Cassius Adair,
Melissa Brooks, thank you for the invite to Exeter.
Oh, cheers. Thank you.
we love you, mwah.
Karakan 12.
April Heller,
Sophie Lewis,
Alexandra Lilly.
Claire Scott,
Ariadne,
Keep that in. Keep that in.
Ariadne Penier,
Lauren and Nines.
Bernard's Pink Jelly Bean,
and Elena's. Thank you for
Thank
watching.
you.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
one of these days you'll say listening.
Oh shit!